Okay, guys, this is APUSH Chapter 2 lecture discussion. Want to give you just a big overview here. And the big overview of this chapter is how European invasion basically ended life as the Native Americans knew it. We want to focus on four colonial groups, four European colonial groups. New Spain, New France, New Netherlands, and the English colonies that would come. We're going to make sure that we know kind of the economics, the social aspects, the politics, the geography, things that you have to fill out in your ESPG chart. The essential questions that we want to be able to answer: what factors led to distinct Spanish, French, Dutch, and English colonial regions in North America, and how did relations between these colonists and Indians evolve over time? So keep that in mind. You should be writing that down. Let's see if we can't get an answer to it. We'll start off with New Spain. Remember, they got there first with Columbus in 1492 down in the Caribbean. A lot of New Spain will focus in Mexico and what's known as American Southwest today. First off, God, glory, and gold, the three G's. They were there for gold. They found gold with the Aztecs and Mayans, but what they realized as they headed north into America was that there was no gold there. Eventually, they realized there's no gold. So they changed their focus to God. And instead of conquistadors coming in and subduing the Indians through force, they changed tactics to the missionary system. And what the missionary system was trying to do was they were trying to Christianize the Indians. They wanted them dressed like Europeans. They wanted them to worship Jesus, the Catholic faith. The Spanish were Catholic, devout Catholics. And for a while, that actually went well. The Indians were pretty receptive to the idea of Jesus. That was fine with them because they worshipped many gods, nature, spirits, and gods anyway. So what was one more god to them? Let's try this Jesus guy out. What can he do? But eventually, as time went by and diseases ravaged the Indians, and Jesus didn't keep droughts from occurring and stuff, the Indians kind of lost faith in these white people's religion. And you started seeing more uprisings and revolts. The most famous of those revolts and the largest was Pope's uprising out in modern-day New Mexico. Pope was a shaman, very successful, was very well coordinated. They were actually able to push out 1,500 Spanish colonists who ran for their lives. They killed several, but the rest of them left before they could be killed. Now, it's a temporary win, as most success stories were for the Indians. A decade later, the Spanish would come back, subdue the Indians, and end of the uprising. Pope, of course, you can imagine what happened to him. All right. The big picture for the New Spain colony I want you to think about is that they're trying to Christianize these natives that they viewed as savages, and the main method of doing this was the mission system. Basically, it's a type of slavery. Get the old encomienda system. Get the slaves. They work the crops at the missions. They provide all the labor, and what do they get out of it? Well, they get to know Jesus. Okay. All right. Let's switch gears a little bit right here to our next colony, which is New France. New France was based in Canada. The population of New France was always pretty low because Canada was quite cold, and many people in France didn't want to come to such a cold place. And at the time, Louis XIV was trying to take on everybody in Europe, so a lot of Frenchmen were needed for his military. The colonists there in New France faced a very church-dominated feudal system. That was also another deterrent. You had more rights in France. For these other colonists, typically it's the other way around. You tend to have more rights in your colonies than you did in the mother country. The French had very low numbers, but they had very disastrous effects on the Native American culture. They introduced disease, of course, just like all the Europeans did, and they introduced guns. And what happened was these Indians would buy up these guns and try to use them to subdue their fellow Indians. The disunity of the Indians was really one of their major downfalls. And even the Indian fighting system before this, Indians typically did not fight to kill. They would raid you, steal your stuff, get out of there. One or two people died. Casualties are very low. The European method was kill them into submission, and Indians began to adapt to that just a little bit. Okay, so you have these deadly wars going on in New France. There were a few Indian groups that became very powerful. The most powerful of them was the Five Nations of the Iroquois. They dominated the gun trade with the Europeans. They used that to dominate their fellow Indians. It also made them a big threat to French colonists as well. The French had the Jesuits, which were by far the most successful of all the missionaries in the New World. What made the Jesuits different from, like, say, the Franciscan friars of New Spain was that the Jesuits were more than willing to adapt to Indian culture. They learned Indian languages. They would wear Indian clothes sometimes, whatever it took to spread the word of God to the natives. A lot of natives believed in the Corn Mother as kind of the head goddess, and so that's just another face of Jesus. It's just Jesus. You just know Jesus as the Corn Mother, and so they would associate these things. And so it made Christianity a lot easier for these Indians in the area to digest. Without a doubt, economically speaking, the French colony was based around the fur trade, and it made them a lot of money. Beaver skin hats were very popular in Europe, and so it brought France some good money. But again, epidemics, Indian infighting, devastating to native culture. All right, so we're going to stop here, and the last two colonies we'll talk about, New Netherland and the English colonies, will be in part 2.